All right, in this video, we're going to talk about practice. Let's get to it. What's going on, everybody? Scott Oaken coming at you. We are going to talk about practice. I had a question sent in from one of our Academy subscribers that asked about how do you get better when you only have 1 to 2 hours of practice per week? And that's a really good question because I think a lot of people have this misconception that they need to be out and they need to go practice for hours and hours. We heard stories of, oh, they spend 10, 12 hours a day on the range banging balls. Now, there are some key things that you need to be able to do, and if you're not doing them, no matter what you do and how much time you spend, you're not gonna see your scores get better. So let's talk about what those keys are. So first thing is, one, you have to work on an area of your game that is actually going to help your scores get better. What I see a lot when people go to practice, they are working on areas that they are good at. And they do that because, hey, they wanna hit good shots, they wanna see the ball fly, and it's not that much fun to struggle at something, I get that, but when you want to try to get better, you have to work on something that's going to give you the most bang for your buck and return on your scores. So the way I do that is I keep stats. I think everybody should be keeping some sort of statistics. Now, the more you can focus on some statistics that have a strokes gained background. So I use the Arcos sensors on my clubs. They track all my shots and then it just gives me my stats at the end. I do that. And what I like too is they give me 3 things that I need to work on from that round. So I will go work on, if it's just one thing that's kind of one major thing, I'll work on that. If there's a couple things that are closely related, I might work on all of those. But having some stats that show you what's going on in your round, not just saying, hey, I feel like I should work on this, because humans, we have this ability, or we have this tendency to emotionally attach to something. So if we hit maybe one bad drive, we attach to that and we blame everything on that. Our driver's the problem. However, we never think about the 6 missed 4-foot putts and in. We never think about, oh, it took me on 6 different holes, it took me 2 or more shots to get on the green from 50 yards. Those are the things we don't think about and we don't attach to them. So then when it comes time to deciding what we're gonna practice, we're not practicing the right thing. So having stats, that's the way I like to do it, but practice the thing that is going to make your game better. That is really critical. Now, the second thing that you need to have is you need to have some sort of feedback. You need to decide, what are you working on? So for me, let's say I'm gonna work on my full swing. Well, if I'm working on my full swing, what part of your full swing are you working on? If you're working on your driver, what part are you working on? So for me, a common one I work on is start line. I need the ball to start where I want it to start. It need to look up and say, yeah, that started where I'm looking. Too many people are just saying, hey, I just want to hit the fairway. I just want to hit it straight. Well, you could do that in a variety of ways, but you can make the ball curve left, curve right. You could hit a heely that goes and rises, you know, all of that. And you're not going to see yourself get better because everything is so random. And just maybe that particular day you have good timing, all of that, and you're just seeing the ball go in the fairway. But then it comes time to go to the course, you're not gonna see it get better. So you need to have feedback of what you're looking at. Sometimes it's gonna be impact position. Sometimes it's not even gonna be what you're doing with the golf ball. You might need to look at it and say, hey, I need to see my body, my swing, move in a particular direction. If that happens, then I am doing it right, regardless of what the golf ball is doing. Chris Como put out a great video just a couple weeks ago talking about his time with Tiger Woods and what made Tiger Woods so special. It's because he could separate working on his swing, working on his feels from what the golf ball was doing. He did not care what the ball was doing. As long as he could get to positions, he knew eventually that was going to lead to success at hitting the ball better. So deciding on feedback and then deciding on the appropriate feedback, that is a key thing that you need to do. The next one is you gotta get hyper-focused on whatever you're going to work on. I think if you're gonna be spending, let's say, an hour to 2 hours per week, what I typically see is people are trying to work on everything. They're gonna go to the range, they're gonna hit drives, they're gonna hit like 5, 6 irons, they're gonna hit 2 wedges, you know, all of that. Then they're gonna go chip for like 4 minutes, hit a couple chips, then I'm gonna hit like 3 short putts, then I'm gonna hit 20 long putts. The problem is you don't get good at any of it. There's this phrase out there, or a saying, it says you will become a jack of all trades, but a master of none. I think that applies really well to golf. If I have an area that I need to work on, so again, I go to my Arcos. If I have one main area, I'm going to work on that with all of my practice time. 1 to 2 hours is not that much. So I need to devote all of that to that skill if I actually want to get good at it. So if they're closely related, then yes, I could do, all right, I've got 10 to 20 yard pitch shots, and I also got 20 to 30 yard pitch shots that I got to get better at. Then yeah, I can work on both of those and get better at both of those skills, but I need to pick something and learn to master it. Once I master it by keeping my stats and seeing that it gets better, then I can move on to the next thing and work on that skill. But if I ever lose what I was doing before, I need to go back and get hyper-focused on what I was doing. That is what's going to allow you to master what you're trying to get better at. And then going along with, hey, we're gonna master the skills, you gotta remember the skills that you're practicing. So again, if you're practicing 1 to 2 hours a week, that might come in one day, or ideally you actually would spread that out over the course of a couple of days. I probably practice about 1 to 2 hours a week. I am at the golf course a lot because I work here, but I do have to do other duties. I'm teaching, all that stuff. So I will end up breaking up my practice sessions into like 15, 20-minute sessions each day that I am here. That way I can get what I'm doing, work on it. I then write it down. There's studies that say by physically writing it, it connects it to your brain. That's gonna be easier to remember. And then I come back the next day and try to do it again. That is what we're working on. Okay, so we're trying to make sure that we can control our thoughts and control the ideas that are going to help us get better. So making sure you remember it, that is a key thought. And then lastly, don't be afraid to get help on your game. You are not spending enough time on your game to where if you are practicing things incorrectly, that you are going to be able to overwrite that in a period of time that is going to be what you want. So it's going to take you a couple of weeks, couple of months to be able to get something to change. So you have to stick with it. That's why it's important to define your feedback. Don't be jumping around. If you're working on 1 or 2 hours a week, you need to work on that one thing and keep working on it so you actually can make it change. It's also important to make sure it's the right thing, because if you spend 1 hour doing it the wrong way, it's gonna take you 1 hour to then undo it, and then it's gonna take you 2 hours to relearn it the other way. It gets exponentially harder to undo and then relearn something. So make sure you get the help. If you're unsure of what you wanna work on, then go get help. I do that on my game. Even though I feel like I have a pretty darn good grasp of how the swing works, I'm always gonna grab second opinions, have somebody else take a look, because I wanna make sure I'm not missing something. My own personal bias is getting in the way. I don't want that, because I'm gonna spend my time. It's precious. It's getting more and more precious to me, having family and all that stuff. So I wanna make sure it is going in the right direction. So if you need help, go get it. It will be one of the best investments that you make, as opposed to spending a ton of money hitting balls after ball after ball and you're not getting better. So that is how I like to see people practice. It's something that I try to help people a ton with. We work on it a ton in our coaching programs, is defining a practice routine. So if that's something you're interested, make sure you check that out in the description below. And as always, if you have a comment, leave a comment down below. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one. Peace.